We had a 67-year-old sheriff come in and put a headset on for the first time and navigate his way through this house, and he stated that he would like all of his officers trained in this. And so that was the immediate effect of this, is that it was not only going to impact our academics, but it was going to impact our community, and that a place like this can now be leveraged to do that. And so for him, in that instance with the police, we were going to add in now different assets to help with their training, whether it's drugs, paraphernalia, weapons. One of the first things I asked that officer or that sheriff when he came in here with his VR headset is I said, how many weapons did you find in the house? Because I didn't even know how many they were in there. And he found 13 and I only saw 6. And so I was like, the keen eye, the differences, the way that they're looking. We kind of had a designated view of how this is going to work for sports management people. But how would this work for EMTs? And how would this work for nurses? And how would this work for social workers who are presented in situations where there's a fight happening in the stadium and different pieces like that? The ability for us to bring in assets was a big game changer for us, graphics and assets. And that's more and more about what we're learning how to do right now with a lot of these things. But our ability to bring in these types of graphics gave us the flexibility to have these kinds of asynchronous solo missions be a little bit more robust for everything. I really like the power that this can do. How can we add in the pieces for our speech therapist? And so our speech therapist said, yes, please present the patient here, and we will have one of our speech therapists actually speak for this. And so this was the conversation we were all having a little bit earlier about, you put somebody in ghost mode, and that person can be anybody from a faculty member to another student to an actual SP from anywhere that maybe even is a ex-patient or a current patient, that would be able to speak to the students in a way that you wouldn't be able to do in the real world. And the main reason for that is, in the real world, you still have to see these people. And so that SP might not act the same way. The students might not act the same way. But if you can bring out a student who wouldn't raise his or her hand in class, but would put on a VR headset and now have a full-on discussion with a speech therapist because they made a connection that they couldn't make in the classroom, to me, that's where all the learning should happen. That's where everybody is. And so what triggered me to even think about that was Bill's just talking about how different perspectives meet. In VR, all perspectives are open. It's more of like a free range of, you no longer are an introvert and an extrovert. Everybody's an avatar now. And so you have the capacity, you have the ability to live a little bit outside of your natural comfort zone. The ability to think freely and dream about what could be has been the absolute best part of going through this experience and this ride with Acadicus. We've been able to ask for something and say, is it possible? And I don't think I've ever been told no. And if it isn't there now, it might be there in the future. And if we ask for it, it will be there in the future at some point in time. And I think that's some of the coolest stuff. The hardest thing is to be left off in a social work house when you want to start the next scene in or the nursing group and whatever. We're going to start in this awesome new space age lobby repository where we'll have the ability to go wherever they want from that space, kind of like the landing spot you guys built in Acadicus. And I think that'll be a nice new fresh way for all of our departments to kind of have the same landing spot when they start knowing this is how I get to my space.
We have a new product that we're coming out with called Acadicus Campus, which is exactly that. So you've got 6 labs. It's a higher price point, but you've got basically a hub that's custom branded. Like you say, you can bring everybody into that hub, and then you can teleport off to the different locations, different programs, different schools, paramedics, nurses, everybody's got their own corner of it, but you've got that campus hub that they can kind of gather at, because it's the intersections between them that's interesting in virtual reality. Right. Different programs are talking to each other and there's overlap. So we don't want to like have everybody going in their own silos. So it's great to hear you say that, because it's sort of a validation of that direction with the product. Where
I had no idea, John. That was just off the top of the head. So
a number of schools have asked about that. So now we came up with the concept of the Acadicus campus. We're going to be launching it at the end of the quarter.